right, let's get some more on this. Dr. Stephen Barber is a political economist from South Bank University. Thanks very much for coming in. Incredibly upbeat message from the government. I guess it's not a big surprise. The reality is, though, that this is an enormous budget deficit still.
Yes, and I think you could start off with the idea that actually we haven't had that much of a budget today. You know, budgets are about taxation and spending, and in fact, we had the taxation announcements back in the pre-budget report 3 months ago. We're not going to hear what the spending announcements are going to be until way after this election now in the autumn, whoever's going to be Chancellor. So what we've been left with here is a nakedly political event ahead of a general election.
Was that a smart tactic, announcing a bit ago the bad stuff and then sort of talking now about what's to come at a convenient moment?
Yes, in a sense. I mean, I wouldn't underestimate the significance of an event like this, because budgets like this simply don't come along that often. You know, a budget on the eve of a general election where you simply don't know who's going to win that election. And the last time was 1992. The time before that was 1970. So we're looking at quite a significant event here, and one which where you can see the Chancellor trying to really forge the dividing lines between the parties, and I think to a degree he's managed to do that.
The element of what he said today that was supposed to appeal to the markets was that over the next 5 years the size of the deficit would effectively halve, but the amount of deficit is actually smaller over the next 5 years than what had originally been anticipated. Is that because the government's taking a particularly aggressive approach to reducing the deficit, or is that something that's occurring anyway?
Well, first of all, the Chancellor was given some crumbs of opportunity here with borrowing actually slightly less, I mean £11 billion or so less than it had been forecast, and he chose to reassure the markets rather than to go for a giveaway budget, if you like. But a lot of these figures are predicated on you know, an idea of what growth is going to be like in the next few years, and of course you know, these are just forecasts that the government is working with. What's clear is that what the Chancellor is still saying, that he's going to continue much of this spending until after the election, and that's really where he's trying to differentiate himself with David Cameron's Conservatives.
It is a dangerous game, though, that this government is getting into in the lead up to the election, though, isn't it? Because it could be accused of almost not accepting the reality. The British economy is in a great deal of trouble, isn't it?
I think you can say that, yes, borrowing is at a significant level, although it has come down significantly in these numbers that have just been released. It's still huge. I mean, you know, public finances in Britain are in a dire state and will need to be tackled. But the difference in how Darling is trying to present himself is that he will have a budget here for growth, and that growth will mean a much less painful, you know, paying back of some of that debt.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question I'm getting at. The whole argument from Labour at the moment is re-elect us because we're the people best placed to help the UK out of this difficult set of circumstances. Given the enormity of the problem, can that line really be bought by the public? Is it likely to be accepted, do you think?
Well, what they've done, of course, to an extent, is to paint David Cameron into the corner, and they got it today. David Cameron's response was, you know, you are the government which has bankrupted Britain. The implication of that is, of course, that they wouldn't have spent the money, and the logic of that is that they would stop cutting, stop spending that cash. Of course, when David Cameron went for this line a few weeks ago, the age of austerity was hugely unpopular. People simply don't like these drastic cuts to public spending, and so in a sense that's where Alistair Darling, who's I think a much cannier political operator than he perhaps gets credit, has really positioned himself.
All right, Dr. Stephen Barber, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed.